I am ready to do an Endgame, and I'm not going to be corny. I'm just going to say I'm ready to do an Endgame.
Can you not? I mean, let's be serious. Can you not be corny? Is that even a possibility?
It's not a possibility because I was going to say something like I'm going to go to a Voyager Endgame, not a Avengers Endgame. So
Oh well, yeah, I did very much think about this episode when I was watching the very. Was the game the one where everybody died? Spoiler.
no, Infinity War
Oh,
was when
Infinity War.
everybody. Yes,
Okay, Endgame was the happy ending.
yes. Endgame is the all the chills in the field. Yes.
So will we get a happy ending at the end of Star Trek Voyager? I wonder. I wonder.
I wonder. Spoilers.
Well, let's get into it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Discussing Trek. Today, we are reviewing the series finale of Star Trek Voyager, Endgame Parts 1 and 2. And today, I have with me, well, I'm Clarence, as always. I'm Clarence. And today, I have with me none other than my friend slash co-host slash Trekkie, Cal Jones. How you doing, man?
You know what? We've come to Voyager, and I'm happy. So I'm happy to be here. Always happy to be here, but I'm especially happy to be here because I'm not going to say what I was about to say, but yes, Voyager. Happy to be here.
You know what's funny is Voyager is, we've all said, well, I know me and you have said this is our favorite series of Star Trek. Is that, I'm saying that
Oh,
correctly?
absolutely. And I'm going to go one step further and say what I was about to say. I think, for me personally, this is the all-time favorite Star Trek episode for me.
Episode. Wow.
Yes.
That's saying a lot.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, one of our favorite series, but unfortunately on the podcast, we've only talked about a few other Voyager episodes, which is very funny,
We've
considering
done
how much you love
Caretaker,
it.
but I think that have we done anything else other than Caretaker?
I think we may have did Tinker Tin or Dr. Spy, maybe,
Maybe.
I believe. But yeah, we haven't done many, just to be honest. Not a lot of them. But again, one of our favorite, Star Trek series. So I can't wait to get into this episode. And it's funny coming back to it after we've watched the first season of Prodigy, which is so Voyager heavy,
Yep.
you know?
Yep.
So what we do here on this podcast, if you didn't know, is review each and every episode of Star Trek in somewhat excessive detail, in addition to talking all things Trek. I want to get into a little news, and we had an unfortunate passing in the Star Trek universe. Annie Wershing, if I'm saying that right, only a young 45, and I didn't realize she was that young, but only 45 years old, and she recently passed away. You may know her from the latest season of Star Trek Picard. She played the very different but very fun Borg Queen in those episodes. So I really enjoyed that. But man, just a sad thing. Apparently she was suffering from cancer this whole while, but she kept acting and kept going. So a really sad thing there.
It is amazing the strength of people, and it's I'm thinking back to her. Obviously, we think
Yeah.
about Chadwick Boseman.
Yeah.
We were joking about Endgame a minute ago, but he was sick during the recording. I believe he was sick during the recording of Endgame, and no one knew it. Going back to Doctor Who, the last couple of seasons of Sarah Jane Adventures,
Yep.
she was sick. No one knew it, but so they carried on, and their legacy will carry on. So,
Yeah, yeah. Can't say enough about the strength of people who are willing to just, I guess, live your life no matter what's going on. And they certainly were great examples of that, for
Yes.
sure. Other things she's been in, which I haven't seen a lot of these: The Vampire Diaries, Timeless, Runaways, which I haven't seen. She was in that as well. Castle. So she's been in
That's
in
why
quite a
she
few
looks
things.
familiar. She was one of the moms on The Runaways. That's why she looks so familiar. I know who she. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, she was on 32 episodes of Runaways, so very prominent there.
Now I know exactly who she is. Okay.
Yeah, as well as Bosch and something called The Rookie, which I haven't seen as well. So, yep, just sad news there. So hearts and minds, and just go out to her family as they get through this very tough time. And it always sucks when you lose somebody in the Star Trek family. So, yeah. And let's kind of just, sadly move on from there to, do you have anything else you want to get into before we get into our review? Anything you've been watching, listening to that you want to give a shout out before we get into our main review?
So, for anyone who's watching or listening to this in the UK or in the US and have BritBox, I have recently started binging Line of Duty. Um, so, I've watched the first 4 seasons of Line of Duty over the weekend, or I'm in the fourth season. And the 12th season of Vera, which I'm a big fan of, premiered on BritBox this weekend. So, woohoo for me.
Man, you're on your BritBox, dude.
Yeah.
Dude.
Seriously, I mean, I think other than returning to, I don't know, Doctor Who and Star Trek, I have pretty much lived in the last couple of months in BritBox. So,
Oh, wow.
there you go.
Yeah, I want to mention a few things that I've been watching that I didn't mention last time. I watched the movie Megan. If you've seen previews of that, it's like the girl version of Chucky, I guess, if you want to call it anything. Very interesting movie. It was fun. I really enjoyed it. There's a great tech angle in there if you're into that. So I really, really liked that movie. Enjoyed that. And also caught up on the ill-fated Morbius.
Really? So, how
Yes.
bad was it?
It's bad. It's bad. And poor Matt Smith, he's just having fun giving the performance of his life, and it's really sad to see him get trapped in that movie. It's like the Doctor Who actors somehow find a way to get into bad movies. I don't know, David Tennant has a few good ones, but it's not like they're just big blockbusters over here in America.
Well, and I don't know if this was a blockbuster or not, but you have Peter Capaldi in the last version of Suicide Squad.
Yeah, which was a good one.
Yeah.
He had a very weird role in that.
With very weird role. So, but hit or miss. He had Morbius, and then he being Matt Smith, and then he went to House of Dragon. So
Yeah, which is just a phenomenal show. Which is
Yeah.
he honestly may be known for that more than, maybe not more, but just as much as Doctor Who by the end of it.
yes, agreed.
And of course, he was in that Netflix show that was pretty popular. Where
The Crown.
Yeah, The Crown. Have you watched that?
I've watched all seasons of it. Yes,
Do you recommend it?
I do. If you like history, knowing that it is a telepic, that there's some liberties that they probably take with the story, a little bit probably, but no, I enjoyed it. I've liked all 3 age variations of the family.
So there's this site called Letterbox where you can go and review movies, and also mark what you've watched. And I wrote a quick blurb for Morbius. Can I read it real quick?
Please do.
Morbius is a not so great movie that sets up some things we'll probably never see come to light. I didn't hate it. I think Matt Smith was pretty great and had a blast in a role. But while the notion of pitting 2 brothers against each other is appealing on the face of it, a lack of execution and clumsy storytelling made this endeavor a very subpar, early aughts, paint by numbers superhero movie.
Interesting. So now, who was the screenwriter of this?
I have no idea.
It sounds like Chris Chibnall.
Oh, wow. Burn. The man is going out. You're still just trashing the guy. Come on, guy.
Hey, can't help it.
Oh, and with that, we're going to get right into our review of Star Trek. Spinning from Marvel, we're going to go back to Star Trek. So Star Trek Voyager Endgame was, let me get a little deets here for you guys. Endgame was directed by Alan Croker and teleplayed by Kenneth Biller and Robert Doherty, and the story by Rick Berman, Kenneth Biller, and Brandon Braga. Now let me get the actual synopsis for you guys. Having long since made it home, an aged Admiral Janeway breaks Starfleet directives and temporal laws to take a last stab at an old enemy and shorten Voyager's journey home. And Kyle, will you go ahead and drop that spoiler warning for us?
Absolutely. So, for everyone listening, if you have not seen the finale of Voyager, put us on pause, go out, watch it, come back, because from this moment forward, spoilers.
The spoiler warning has been dropped, of course, and like always, we go right back to Mr. Jones for the beats of the episode, sometimes serious, sometimes comedic. Honestly, you never know. Mr. Jones, what do you have for us this week? Do you have anything?
I do indeed have something, and it ties to Star Trek's past and future, and present maybe, or present in a couple of weeks. Those were the days.
Short,
That's
simple,
it.
and sweet.
Yep, those were the days.
So, what makes those the days? Is it that feeling of nostalgia that we get from watching these episodes? And obviously, again, we love Voyager, and I have to admit, when I sat back to watch this yesterday, it was just like a warm blanket that you you snuggle in when you're cold. It just makes you feel good. Some hot cocoa and.
So let me ask you this, and I think we've made reference to watching things a long time ago, and then we go back and watch it with years past, etc. Do you find that you see things differently watching it now than you did in 2001? Because you're technically like Admiral Janeway now compared to Captain, just as I am. The experiences that you've had in your life, does it make the episode feel different to you?
For me, I don't think it did. I don't think it did. For me, it felt just as fresh, and the points were just as poignant as they were when I initially watched it. I get there is a message in this two-parter of old Janeway versus younger Janeway, and the experiences that made her different and much tougher, harder. And I do get that sentiment in the story, but for me, I really didn't feel it myself. But obviously, you have something going on there.
So, I love it just as much as I loved it the first time, so that didn't change. But what's the word I'm looking for? The point of view that I related to more, watching it the first time, and maybe it was because I had watched it in sequential order and I knew Captain Janeway, and that was the one that I was watching. But I felt like I had more of a connection watching it this time with Admiral Janeway than I did the first time, because she felt like the alien the first time watching it. She was the unknown. And this time I felt like, I don't know, I just empathized more for some reason with the older Janeway than I did. I liked them both, don't get me wrong, but
For sure.
I felt like I just understood the Admiral more.
I got another one for you. As we pass this time and we've seen Prodigy and we've gotten to know more of the older Kate McGrew, I personally am, like you said, in a strange way, I'm connected more to the older Janeway, seemingly, but which is funny because of course we had 7 seasons with the younger Captain Janeway. Mm-hmm. But for some reason, after seeing Vice Admiral Janeway on Prodigy and actually, spending this time with older Janeway, whether it be on a different show, or whatever,
Right.
Seeing her age through the years and seeing her come back into the Star Trek fold, it's something that pulls you a little bit to the older Janeway, and it's a funny thing, I feel.
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't take away from the younger Janeway, because I still had that same admiration and whatever that I watched the first time through. And maybe it's partly because when, 20 years ago, we were different people, literally.
Yeah, for sure.
We've come through, there are people that we've lost, loved ones, relatives, coworkers, whatever, circumstances change, fill in the blanks of all different categories. Life happened.
Yeah.
basically. So I just think that y the older you get, the more inclined you are to want to revisit things and wonder if I woulda, coulda, shoulda.
Yeah, for sure.
And maybe that's partly why we relate to her too.
Yeah. And so let's talk about the world building a bit, because the thing that just jumped out to me again as we look at this now, 20 years since this episode is aired, um, and we see where they're projecting what the future will look like, what these characters, what these actual people will look like 20 years down the line. I think it's what, 20. It took them 23 years to get back,
Yeah,
and it's 10 years out. So it was actually 33 years since we
right,
saw them.
right. It took them 16 extra years, I think, to
Yeah.
get home. Plus, it's been another 10
So it
years.
is to yeah, wow.
26.
It is right on point then. Just, we're a few years further
Right.
than that point. What did you think about the world building on how they actually made these people look and realize this world that we see here? Because I tried to put this in my mind of like, okay, where are we in the Star Trek timeline exactly? Is this, other than Discovery, is this the furthest future we've seen in Star Trek?
Maybe.
I'm not sure, but I think it's pretty close if it's
But
not.
yeah, I think you're right on point. And the reason I wrote down those were the days was because of what we're talking about, the conversation we just had. But
Yeah.
it also goes into the fundamental premise of the show. The world building is all about seeing them in the future and her having this yearning for those were the days.
Yeah.
The things that had happened and trying to undo, just as what we were talking about. That's what she was doing. Let me interject something real quick because I'm curious to see if this happened to you. You watch on Paramount Plus, right?
Yes.
So let me tell you something weird that happened to me. So when I got ready to watch part one and part two, I'm subscribed to Paramount Plus through Apple TV. So I log in, go to Paramount Plus, go to review part one or watch part one, and it tells me $1.99 to watch.
What?
Yeah, exactly. So I go to the episode before that, start streaming. So I'm
That's
like,
interesting.
that's weird. Maybe they just don't want us to see the, finale. So I said, all right, seen it so many times. I already know. So I said, I'm not paying, $2 to watch this. I already seen it. I'll watch part two. So I clicked on part two. And the weird thing was part two was part one and part two without
Yeah.
any, part one and part two to it.
Yeah, so maybe there's just a numbering mishap on the
Maybe.
Apple TV app, because on Paramount Plus it is listed as it's one movie. It's one
Yeah.
movie. So I watched it nonstop together, which I
And
thought
so
was
did I,
a
at
very
that
great
point.
experience, I feel. But yeah, it's kind of weird that they didn't split them up.
Yeah.
Throws the numbering off.
It does. And maybe, that's why they had one. But, for someone that didn't take the time to look and click, I wouldn't have known that. But back to your world building question. The thing that kind of tugged at the heartstrings was the Tuvok scene.
Mm,
When she goes and she says goodbye.
yeah.
That was just kind of like that literally seriously tugged at the heartstrings.
Well, there's so much to what's going on here. We have this world building that we're establishing at the very beginning of a supposed future. And what was in the back of my mind the whole time, knowing how this episode is going to end, is that this is a future that we will never see. Everything, all the sentiment that we have from the beginning of the Doctor getting married and Captain Kim and where everybody, B'Elanna and Tom's child now in Starfleet working for Admiral Janeway, all things that we have in place may happen, but it's going to be different because Janeway is changing this future. And it's weird because it goes against everything that supposedly she believes, but she's adamant on doing this thing.
So let me ask you a question. Well, I have two questions. Question number one is, do you think she was right? And question number two is, they play coy in the first part of the episode with Seven of Nine. Did you think when watching this that Seven had gone back and turned on them and went back to the Borg the way Janeway reacts when asked about Seven until you find out what happened?
I don't know. I think I always figured that something, somebody died along the way. 23 years is a long time to get such a big group of people back. And we had already seen where even in the first few days of landing in the Delta Quadrant of people just not making it. And yeah, to go so long and you're going to lose some people. Now, obviously, Seven is a huge, significant loss. And yeah, so I do get the sentiment there. And I always thought that something went wrong. And the fact that how this tore Chakotay up, he was never the same as they put it in the episode. I can see that. But let me spin it back around on you and ask you about this relationship that I think we had seen it kind of hinted at even before we got to the finale to Endgame. But how did you feel that was played in this two-parter? Did you feel like they laid it on too thick just to give us these heartfelt moments of losing one of the two along the way, or did it feel natural to you?
I remember watching this as, back in the DVD days of Netflix. And, when they finally released a season, was getting them back to back to back. So I was watching them back to back to back as soon as they came out. So it felt natural because you were pre-binging days, binging the episodes. And it felt natural to me. What it doesn't feel natural now is I want that explanation of what happened to that relationship. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because we've never referenced it, seeing Seven of Nine again. We've not had any Chakotay references from her. So now I'm wanting that Chakotay reference.
Yeah, it's funny because, again, to Prodigy, we see where Chakotay is right now. Picard, we see where Seven is right now. Obviously moved on to other love interests.
Right.
So what happened to all that? I just want some Voyager wrap up, even if it's like a mini series, something to tell us where these people are now. I think they're right at that age where they all could jump in and pick up around this timeline where we're at right now. Because, obviously we talk about we're a little over right at 20 years later in real time.
Right.
So I would love to see them come back and revisit to, just tell us a little bit more about the story of how things happened when we got back. Because I think for me, initially watching, that was one of the saddest things about the ending to me was that we got home, but, that's it. We're home, Chewie, we're home.
We're home. And there is and I have this somewhere in a box somewhere that I bought this book, but there is a book, and I don't know if it's still in print, but there is a book that was written, a Star Trek Voyager novel that takes effect or takes place immediately after.
Really?
And it's when because you have that last scene and they're being escorted back to Earth. Yeah. And this takes place immediately after they land. So it's, I think there's one or two books, and I can't remember the name of them. I know I bought the first one. I can't remember what all happened because it's been 20 years since I read it. But there is a book out there that picks up immediately after the series ends.
Yeah, I might have to pick it up. I'm kind of hesitant to pick up the books nowadays because I know, when it comes to canon, the books are the last thing that's really adhered to. Yeah. So, but there are some great stories out there that you can pick up and kind of fill in some of the gaps. So yeah, maybe I need to do that.
So let me go back to my first question that I asked for you. Do you think Janeway was right?
No, because there's sentiments that we get throughout the episode where, of course, and she even mentions that young Janeway is such an idealist. She's so hard or so stern in her principles. Even when they first make it to the Delta Quadrant, they had a chance to go home, but she was so adamant on upholding the Starfleet values, and that's what keeps them there. So you have, and she even says that we're back here 7 years later, and we have, another chance to go home. But will you take that opportunity, or will you still hold fast to your principles? I think that's the Janeway I know. Is the Janeway that holds to her principles when she can. Most of the time, she holds to her principles, and she won't compromise. She's not going to take the easy way out when it's going against what Starfleet is. She will not take that easy way out. So we're right back there where she gets this opportunity. So was she right? If that's the question, no. Just to put it bluntly, after all of that preamble, no. And Harry Kim says this thing, and Harry even said himself, "I'm the one that always wants to get home. I'm trying to find a shortcut. I'm the one that's saying, let's do this. Let's take risk. Let's try to get home." But he's the one that says maybe it's not the destination, it's the journey. And of course, if we're going to lose people along the way, that's a very sad thing, and that might change your mind a little bit. But I just love it when Starfleet people hold fast to Starfleet principles. That's why I get so mad on some of these other shows where they just throw all that asunder, and Lord X, not the trash Lord X, but just throw all that asunder, and we're just gonna be zany and not even care about the rules. So that's one of the things that draws me to Star Trek, is having principles and doing everything they can to try to uphold them.
And see, let me interject something real quick, because this is not trying to be cliche, but one of the reasons, because they actually say this in the episode, that one of the reasons I like this so much is, yes, they can hold their principles. Harry, Captain Janeway, all the rest of the crew, they can hold hold true to their principles, to the prime directive, to the temporal, etc., and so forth. And that's cool. They can do that. But parallel to that, you can also have the other Janeway who has the different motivation, so she can be right and wrong at the same time. You can have your cake and eat it too.
Yeah, true. Of course, that version of Janeway doesn't make it, but was she right? I don't know. Because anytime you're going back and changing the past, I feel like this is kind of wrong, because it's just like a God thing. It's just too powerful. It's too powerful. You can steer any event in any direction. Of course, she wants her crew to get home. That was the right thing for her and for her crew, and then she can do it with minimal interference to the timeline. It might not be such a bad thing, but ultimately, I think maybe we should avoid that at all costs.
Okay, so could we not argue that Discovery's presence in the future could equally be as detrimental, something from the past coming to the future? It's in reverse.
Yeah, you're right. You're not wrong.
But they have made a life for themselves in the future by something that they did in the past. So
but you know what? We could do that thing in Doctor Who that they always do. It was supposed to happen that way.
Yes. And it was in Pyramids of Mars that you're referencing. Just because maybe she was supposed to have done the changing of the timeline all along, and that was never meant to happen.
Yeah.
Who knows?
I did love seeing some of this future tech that we got to see, like the new shielding that she had on her shuttlecraft that the Voyager got. I thought that was pretty cool. And the Borg tech, where they're just like decimating Borg cubes like it's not even anything, Mm-hmm. I find that all really interesting and cool. I got kind of a sad moment. You mentioned your Tuvok moment being your sad moment. I think my sad moment was seeing Neelix and Astrometrics playing Kata Scott with 7 to 9. Yeah, that one was really sad, because good for Neelix, he has a family now, but he's left back there in the Delta Quadrant. So
Well,
Yeah,
I remember it wasn't it about 2 or 3 episodes before that he left, if I remember correctly.
I think so. Yeah,
And I remember watching it, but I didn't expect him to leave before they got home. I actually expected him to go, on back because when you start the show, pretty much if they get lost at the beginning, when the show ends, they've got to get back. That's
yeah,
kind of the assumption.
yeah.
And my assumption was he would get back with them or go back with them. So that was kind of a big, you know, when he didn't. So yeah, I'm with you there.
So I want to ask you. We're jumping all around here, folks. One of my biggest. Well, I want to ask you. I'm gonna go first, but the question is gonna be: if you had any problems with the episode, what was your biggest issue? I'm gonna go first and say my biggest issue. It may be the same one as yours. I don't know. The ending. So as they're coming out of the transwarp conduit, they make a decision to change course at the very end. We don't see what happens to the Voyager. All we see is this Borg sphere chasing them. So we don't get any explanation of how it actually gets inside the sphere, except that they changed course. And of course, it's a very dramatic, awesome ending to see it. The cube come out, then seconds later, it just goes up in flames, and the Voyager comes bursting through for a very poetic ending to the series. But that part didn't sit well with me when I first saw it, and seeing it again, it was equally as annoying to me.
Okay,
So
so
have you even thought about that? Or
yes, absolutely. So in reverse, actually, that I thought of it. Now, when I watched it the first time, and anybody that's heard me on a podcast knows, give me something sad, I'll cry in a minute. So I remember watching it the first time, that moment where they finally get home was like, that moment you're just like, you've been waiting for and building
yes,
for. So you have that emotional response. I really wasn't paying attention to the logistics the first time watching it because I was all captured in the moment. And maybe that's how they wrote it. They really didn't expect you to like pick it over with a fine tooth comb. But watching it the second time through last night, I was going, that didn't quite make
me.
sense.
No, no.
You know,
It was cool.
yeah,
It was cool.
It was cool, but no, it just didn't quite make sense.
Was there any other part of the episode that you have a problem with?
No, loved it.
What is your favorite part of the episode?
My favorite part of the episode is every time you have the Janeways together.
Yes.
I think she did an excellent job of creating enough distinction between the two that it made it believable.
Yeah, I agree.
You know,
I agree.
and I look at Harry Kim and I look at Tom Paris, and they looked like Riker did when they tried to age him, and it didn't really look, authentic. Their
Yeah.
aging didn't quite feel authentic. Barclay didn't feel authentic to me, in the sense of what we have now. The things that they're able to do now. That said, that Janeway Admiral look didn't look made up. It looked a little more natural.
It really did. It really did. And of course, I can see the current Kate Mulgrew going in and getting some hair, fixed or whatever. She looked just like that. Uh, Robert Duncan McNeil looks nothing like old Tom Paris.
Right.
Garrett Wong looks. I could see him getting a haircut, and he would look close with a little graying up, because he may be naturally gray, but he may dye his hair or something, but he's not gray from what I can tell, maybe a little bit. I haven't seen Lieutenant Barkley since I think he's still alive, but I don't know how he looks. And of course, Chakotay is all white haired, but we didn't see him in as the older aged up. He still looks great as well. And of course, we've seen 709 kicking butt in Picard, Jerry Ryan. So Yeah. I
And
it's interesting how
Tim
they do.
Russ is still with us, isn't he?
Yeah, Tim Russ is. He looks similar, but just a little bit older, a little bit
Right.
older. He looks pretty close. So man, I just want them to do something to pull these guys back in. Um, if there's a part of the episodes that I had a problem with, other than, well, the parts that I like, I'd say a part that I really really liked. Speaking of Tom Paris and Harry Kim, I love the part when Harry has the brilliant idea of trying to come up with solutions to get back to that nebula, to try to figure a way to get to these wormholes that they're detecting.
Hmm.
And he's coming up with all type ideas, and of course Tom is finna have a baby, and he's like old man Tom now. He's not taking risk anymore.
Right.
And Harry just gives him a hard time. I just thought it was hilarious when he's settled down and is not, you know, not trying to cause any ruckus. He just want to be there for his. He's a family man, so he said in the episode. So I just found that really funny, and I love those two. Their dynamic is really really hilarious, and yeah,
All right. So
great.
if anybody who has connections with the Star Trek writing or that's listening to us right now, the writing, production, casting, whatever, I have a recommendation. If they do a Tilly show with Starfleet Academy, so if this happened, let's say okay, so let's say it's been 20 years since the finale of Voyager, and let's just say they want to shoot it up to the future or whatever. No, Tilly is in the future. No, never mind. What I was thinking was I would love to see the character reappear that's their child. That would be a good
Ooh,
Voyager tie-in
yeah,
that you could have had. Perfect. You could cast anyone, but just say, "Hey, my parents were, Tom Paris and Belana Torres."
yeah, that would be really cool. And again, I just hope there's room to bring DS9 people back, bring Voyager people back. The fact that we did a live action Lower Decks Strange New Worlds crossover that's coming up, if we could do that, we could do anything.
Yes,
you
yes.
know?
Don't give us what we don't want. Give us what we do want.
Hey. I'm trying to think about other details of the episode that I really liked. Alex Krieg as the Borg Queen, I thought was really, really well done. And it was awesome seeing older Janeway go against her head to head and just look her dead in the face and not have an inkling of fear in her body.
Right.
It was just amazing. Yeah. Um, yeah. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, if you look at it from the perspective of tying up loose ends, because that's all that it was,
Yep.
the only thing that I wish that I would have gotten more of was actually see them getting home other than just seeing the ship. But knowing that we already got that in the beginning in the future, I
Yeah.
guess you didn't want to repeat that again at the end. Uh,
Yeah.
but I think everybody had some type of end game to their story, no pun intended.
True.
There was wrapping up of everybody's. And does it fit in 2023 storytelling terms? Maybe not. Maybe it feels a little bit too in a box and,
Yeah.
nicely
Nice
wrapped
bow.
up. Yes.
Yeah.
But I like my nice bow. I like it nicely wrapped. It
Yeah.
it gave me a good feel sitting there watching it again.
Yeah. And if I would have never got any more Star Trek Voyager, I think I would have been happy. But now that they're bringing Star Trek back, I want more.
Yeah.
Oh, and I will say this: there is definitely a cringe moment in this episode,
What was
and
it?
and the cringe moment is when Seven wants to get her Borg implant removed so she can feel or experience the full gamut of emotion, and the doctor is just so creepy. He's like, "If you need to explore those, I'm really available to, to help you out." Oh man, it's so creepy, man, so creepy.
But, that goes perfect with the character though. But again, something that doesn't age well, right?
No, yeah, I don't think it did. It was
But
funny.
yeah, it was funny. But speaking of the Doctor, a cool thing for the two of us is the fact that you and I have a picture with the Doctor, not the Doctor, but the Doctor from Star Trek.
Oh yeah, yeah, that was amazing. That was at Pensacon
Pensacon,
a few
yeah,
years back.
first year I think we went to Pensacon.
Yeah, yeah, that was amazing. Getting to meet him, and we also saw Robert Duncan McNeil. And was there somebody else?
Yes, Robert Duncan McNeil, the gentleman who passed away that played. Um,
Oh yeah, Aaron Eisenberg. Yeah, we saw
yeah,
him as well. They were all on a panel together.
and there was one other person. Was it Harry Wang?
Yeah,
Garrett Wang?
Garrett Wayne. Garrett Wayne was he on
Was
the
it
panel?
him? There were three people. I can't remember the third one.
It was. I don't think it was Garrett Wayne because I think I remember.
Remember
Well,
him?
we saw William Shatner. He did a stage thing
Right,
at the
but I
same.
could have sworn there were three people on this panel. It meant the third person may have been whoever was asking the questions. Maybe,
Yes.
maybe.
Yes.
I
Yeah, I know
can't
it was
remember.
Robert Picardo, Robert Duncan McNeil, because they kept talking about the two Robbies, and I
Yeah.
think it was Aaron Eisenberg was kind
Okay.
of jumped in on their panel.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah, yeah. That was a lot of fun. So I think we can end there. I just think we love this episode. We going back to it just like a warm blanket. It's a 5 for me for this episode because was it the perfect wrap up? Maybe it was too perfect. Maybe it's just a bit too perfect. I loved it. I thought it had everything I was looking for. Just as a curiosity, you want to know what happened after they got back to Starfleet headquarters or whatever. But as it stands, getting a glimpse into the future, I think it's a perfect ending for the voyage home.
Yep. Yep. Looking from the context of 2001, I'm going to, not trying to, look in the future of what we know now, but just going back to 2001, 5 out of 5. They hit it out of the park. They gave a big spectacular ending in a 2001 style. 5 out of 5. I loved it then, and I love it now.
Yeah, they got what she said. Can we have our cake and eat it too, or something? She
Yes,
said
yep,
they got to
exactly.
destroy the conduits and get back home, and just a beautiful ending. One more thing before we end. One more thing. Did you? First of all, let me say the fit of the future uniforms was a bit sloppy. I guess that's just because they were trying to rush to get a new futuristic look and get them on the actual characters, but. Did you notice the styling of those uniforms looked a lot like the lower deck uniforms? And I'm wondering if they used these as the basis kind of for the lower deck uniform because they have the
Maybe.
kind of cross
Yeah.
collar down
Yeah.
on the side.
Yeah, I
I don't know if
noticed
we've
that.
seen that before. We may have, but this is my first time noticing it.
Yeah.
In Trek.
Maybe. Who knows? Let me say this real quick before we go. And I know you're wrapping up, but those were the days. The other reason that I put that in as our beats of the episode is for what we will be discussing in the weeks to come. That is actually quoted in the most recent trailer for Picard. Those were the days. So we're going to revisit Good Times season 3 Picard.
Yeah, man. I think I'm gonna pull some steals from that trailer, and maybe we can jump on later this week, or maybe that can be our review for next week to just talk about the trailer, pull some of the steals, take a look,
Cool.
get ingrained in the nostalgia of what's going on in this last season. That's pretty exciting. And yeah, I have no idea what they're gonna do. I just know they're bringing back old folks. Oh, not old folks, as the old characters. Sounds bad to say old folks.
They're bringing back characters we've
They're
not
bring-
seen in a while.
Yeah, they're bringing back our characters that we know and love from TNG and subsequent movies. So yeah, it's going to be fun to see what they do there. I think I'm going to have a lot more fun with this season than I had with 1 and 2. Even though 1 and 2 were good on their own, I'm really excited about season 3 and to get aboard the Titan and see what our ragtag crew can do.
So let me make real quick. Last thing I want to say, I'm going to make a prediction. I think we're going to have a lot of the feels in this one. I think we're going to have a lot of, the hair standing up on your arms and, having that little punch in your gut moment. I think we're going to have quite a lot of those in this next season.
But
That's
you're
my
saying it's going to be
prediction.
crying the whole time to see these
Who
characters
knows?
come back.
But there you go.
Guys, what did you think about Star Trek Voyager Endgame? Did you enjoy? Did you even watch Voyager? I know a lot of people were hating on Voyager at the time, but to me, it has proven to be one of the a great entry into the pantheon of Star Trek series. Definitely one that we love. What did you think about the Star Trek Voyager Endgame? You can certainly hit us up in the chats if you're watching live, or send in feedback to fans@discussingtrek.com, or hit us up at Discussing Trek on any and all social medias. We want to know what you think about it. Yeah. And we'll be back with Trek Trivia next week when John is back on the show. And thank you for joining me for this live stream, Kyle.
Absolutely. As always, glad to be here chatting with you.
All right. And we'll be back, guys, next time. So until next time, live long and prosper.
Bum, bum, bum.
Ending stream.